Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Sagalong 2019. This is the first episode, and it is Eirik the Red Saga. I'm co-host is Elena Macrodina, Lukash at Totally Pretentious, Crystal at Biblioatlas, and Steve Donahue at Steve Donahue. I have so far watched Elena's and Lukash's videos. Very, very interesting to see what other folks are thinking, and I'll be watching the comments on all the videos. This is great fun. It was a quick read, 20 plus pages. I have it here in the Oxford World Classics, Eirik the Red and Other Icelandic Sagas. So yeah, it's not very long. Interesting as the first saga for us to read. We're going to follow this up with the Saga of Gunnlaug Wormtongue and the Ravenscald, and then work our way from there. So, a couple things stand out to me here. First of all is the language. And it's pretty straightforward, at least in the translation I have. I don't even know if they say who does the translation in this. I imagine they do. Selection, translation, and introduction. Yeah, Gwyn Jones. So, a couple impressions. First, they're Icelandic sagas. They connect the Scandinavian world and the world where they traveled and traded and conquered and did all their other stuff. The Vikings. And first thing is war is central. Right off the bat, I mean, we start in Dublin, which was a Viking camp basically in what's modern day Ireland. We have heroes falling right off the bat. Then there's always the sea. They're always at sea, it seems like. Always on this journey. That very restless. There's a sort of a tension in the stories as we receive them between paganism and Christianity, and a blending and an apologia almost going on with the writer, it seems like to me. For some of these actions are very pagan. But the stories are preserved as Christianity takes over. So some of this stuff probably was well known to the people who heard these stories long before they were written down, I would guess. And so you couldn't get rid of some of the details, so you had to explain them. There's a particular story about a prophetess, and they need a chant that one of the beautiful young maid, or well, I don't know if she's married by then or not. She knew it from her mom, and this is part of the tradition, and it had to be sung to foretell the future. And well, she argues that she's a good Christian, and eventually she's convinced to do it, and it works. So the magic works. And a lot of this centers somewhat loosely around Eirik, who had been made an outlaw, who names Greenland in an early version of advertising, not relying really much on reality. But it was smart. Greenland is, when you want to go pick between two places, you have Greenland and Iceland, right? Which one has the name might be more attractive. I'd love to visit both, by the way. So you have the long houses and the communities and the relatives and the slaves, which may be captured prisoners. You have alliances and just constant movement, which is what I love about it. And eventually that movement leads to Newfoundland, Baffin Island. We're not sure. Some folks think with the Vinland part, that maybe they're talking as far as Cape Cod, with the dunes and the sand dunes. You have interactions with various native cultures who discovered the continent long before the Vikings or Columbus. And those go well or not. In one case, there's a scene where they come upon a family and take the children, and they're discussed as disappearing into the earth. Well, if you look at the archaeology from some of those areas, there actually were homes built down into the earth by some of the native peoples. So who knows if that has anything to do with it, or if they just magically disappeared. But it comes to mind as you're reading it. The other thing is the Skrellings, which we're not sure what ethnic group that might have been, but there's somewhere on that eastern seaboard of Canada, or what becomes the United States, perhaps some of those groups. And that doesn't go well because a bull that they had brought on their boat and were on shore with came bellowing out at the Indians or the Skrellings or the Native Americans or whoever they might have been, Eskimos. It could have been anything, Inuit. So we really don't know. There have been archaeological remains of Vikings or Norse people in the Ontsink Meadows. So they definitely made it. The itinerary is a little sketchy because their names for things might not be our names, and we don't know how much time they spent there. So I think the tension with the paganism and the Christianity, and the tension between indigenous peoples and the explorers, in this case Eirik the Red and his people, and just the sheer magnitude of their travels was fascinating. If you pay attention and you're listening, you're realizing they're spending an awful lot of time at sea under less than comfortable conditions. I remember traveling to Oslo, Norway, and seeing some of those gorgeous Viking ships at the museum in Oslo, and I'll never forget it. But if you spend any time at sea, they look like they might have been a bit of a challenge on the comfort side. And you had whole families, and obviously from the story, you had animals. So I think that there's a lot of hints in this saga. I am reminded of heroic tales. Right now it's funny because I'm in the Conan. I've been trying to keep up with these comic books and going back to the stories. And you see a lot of overlap here, that heroic image, you know. There's one scene here where a guy has a rock right through his noggin. I mean, there's back then that kind of fighting was pretty brutal. So you get some of that, and there's a little overlap there, and it's fun. But I enjoyed the story. I think the translation may matter, so I don't know what translations anybody else has read. Like I say, it's a short, but it's a glimpse into a world that fortunately was not lost. I mean, a transitional time in the culture, and you get to see that, and you preserve a bit of the older culture too, so it's great fun. So I hope everybody that got a chance to read it, if you didn't get a chance to read it, it's like I say, it's like 20 pages, no big deal. You pick it up and catch up in no time. So we'll move on to the next saga. I'll link all the co-hosts down below, and thank everybody, and I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you.